In this video, we will talk about the difference between past tense and present tense and when to use either of them. So, as an example, present tense is, for example, my talking to you right now. Past tense is my referring to a video that I made last week that may have talked about something else. So, present tense is right now. Past tense is something that happened before. So an example of present tense is I am watching TV. I am really enjoying this movie as I sip my lemonade. Past tense is last week I watched a movie that I really enjoyed. It was on Tubi. It was called Sinners Want It. I drank lemonade as I watched and I reclined. That's past tense. What you don't want to do is to switch back and forth without cause and jumble the thoughts and the time frame so that the reader can't follow. Now, it is perfectly acceptable to talk or to state your book in present tense and then to have a reflection. That reflection, however, should be separated from the main story by dropping down and skipping a line or placing the reflection in italics, maybe indenting it on both sides so that it's very clear that we're going back in time. So, decide before you write your book if you're going to use present tense or if you're going to use past tense. If you're going to use both, just make sure you do it effectively. What you don't want to do is to write your book or get halfway through and say, oh my goodness, I should have been telling this in past tense. It's very difficult to switch or to go back and to change everything. And it just causes your story to lose some of its effectiveness. It lacks the engagement that it has if you start out using the right tense. So I'm going to give you a few pointers or a few tips, a few benefits or advantages for using present tense and why you might want to use it. But then I'm going to caution you about using it and tell you some reasons that you may not want to use it. For example, and I have my notes here, so pardon me for not looking at you the entire video. I'm looking at my notes. I hope that's permissible. All right, so present tense feels like a movie. It's happening right now. I can just feel it. I'm right there immersed in it. And so for some readers, that's a joy. That's what they enjoy. Present tense intensifies the emotions because if I'm feeling it right now, it's different from talking about something that I endured 10 years ago because the effectiveness of it or the way I felt isn't as deep right now as it was then. So it intensifies the emotions for not only the writer, but for the reader as well, of course. Present tense works well with deep point of view. And so I'm going to put a little pin right there and say, be sure to watch the next video because it's going to talk about point of view. So if you're not familiar with deep point of view, you'll learn. And any of the topics that I have, for example, past tense versus present tense, if you want more information, be sure to search, do your research, do your homework, because in these snippets, I can't give you all of the information. I can just give you some things to think about and I can caution you before you go too far in the wrong direction. So then lastly, present tense works best in short time frame stories with constant action. So think about that. What is it that you're writing and why do you have a reason, have a purpose for writing it in present tense? But now again, there are some drawbacks for using present tense. And let me make sure I have my note pages in order here. Some readers don't like present tense. It's just too limited and it just doesn't give them enough. So just be cautious. Look at different books that have been published in present tense, see the effects of them, and how did those authors who did really well pull it off. Present tense is also less flexible. Time shifts are awkward when you write in present tense. And so that's another reason to avoid it. It's harder to pull off. So how skilled of a writer are you? And then there's no or little narration, which only from that main character's perspective can you really tell what's going on. And sometimes when you're telling it from one person's perspective, you can't tell what somebody else is thinking or share that. So it makes your story not as well-rounded and it can be somewhat flat. So those are some things to think about when you're thinking about using present tense. Now let's go ahead and talk about past tense. And again, past tense works for just about every genre that there is, and it's just a really cool way of making sure that all of the details are in the story and that it's not as limited. So if you are debating, if you can't decide which to do, past tense is the preferred. It's the easier, and it's going to be easier too to keep that consistent. So it's something to think about. Will you write in present tense? Will you write in past tense? And which one is going to be more effective for your reader? But which one can you pull off most effectively? And again, before you submit your manuscript, make sure that you're consistent with whatever tense you choose, and that there are not multiple tense shifts that shouldn't be there. I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.